difference between a stem cells banking, especially in terms of umbilical cord, and the stem cell bank you have on cells from the teeth?
Sure. So if I have to just step back and talk a little bit about stem cells, there are essentially two kinds of stem cells in living beings. The first is the embryonic cells, which are actually the best quality cells, which are found at the time the embryo is formed.
Okay.
However, unfortunately, in order to no, that is not from the umbilical cord. This is even prior to umbilical cord, which is the embryonic cell.
Okay.
So to collect these cells, you unfortunately have to kill the embryo. So you actually end up taking a life. That's why there are ethical issues around that. So embryonic stem cells.
If you kill the embryo, who will it help?
No, so the cells are collected and the embryo is taken. So basically you leave a lifeless embryo and you collect the cells out to do experimentation.
Okay.
So that's what most of the governments and religious bodies are not really in favor of, and hence there are ethical issues with that.
Okay.
But everything post that is called an adult stem cell. Now an adult stem cell essentially is what we call as an undifferentiated stem cell, which means that when a baby is formed in the womb of a lady, typically these cells keep on regenerating in themselves. They create more of themselves and also differentiate into various tissues and organs and blood. So there are two types of adult stem cells essentially. First are called hematopoietic or blood related cells, and the second are called mesenchymal or tissue and organ related cells. So these are two undifferentiated adult stem cells. Now everything else that comes after that, in the form of WBCs, RBCs in blood, or in the form of frankly your skin, bone, cartilage, liver, hair, eyes, etc., in the form of tissues and organs, originates from these two types of adult stem cells. Now,
you mean to say one for blood origination and one for the other organs and tissues?
Correct, absolutely. So you got it right. So that is the difference between umbilical cord blood and tissue preservation. So when a baby is born, the cord blood has got blood related stem cells or hematopoietic stem cells. So when they are preserved, they can actually cure all the blood related disorders or potentially cure all the blood related disorders in future. Whereas the tissues and organs, for that you need different type of stem cells which are mesenchymal.
What are blood related diseases?
So blood related diseases are like thalassemia, lymphoma, leukemia. These are all the blood cancer related diseases. So you can actually regenerate blood using these cells and can transplant it.
Anemia also?
I think so, yes. Even anemia can be cured. So there's a list of some 70 plus diseases that these cells are potentially used for, which are listed on many of the umbilical cord blood banks, websites. If you go through that, so that is the potential of the cord blood related cells. Now, when you come to tissue, which is, if you look around the world, nearly 90+% of the diseases are actually tissue and organ related diseases, including diabetes. Okay, so you need tissue and organ related cells or mesenchymal cells for that. So there are multiple sources of mesenchymal cells. For example, even for hematopoietic cells, bone marrow is an alternative for all the people who have missed the cord blood banking opportunity. Bone marrow also contains mesenchymal cells, which are tissue and organ cells, as I mentioned, and they can be used. Apart from that, there is umbilical cord tissue. So along with blood, the cord has certain tissue. That tissue can also be used for capturing and preserving these cells. Apart from that, there is.
You mean to say even from umbilical cord, two things can be preserved, blood
correct,
as well as
tissue. Correct.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Now, apart from that, there is the body fat. So when somebody does liposuction, adipocyte or what they call as the body fat has got certain cells as well. That those can also be used for preserving. Those are tissue and correct when you do a liposuction and take out that fat. Now those also can be used for as they are also mesenchymal cells. Apart from that, these cells are found in the outer layer of heart, inside the corneal tissue or the eye. But if you look at all of these areas, these are areas where a surgical intervention is required to collect these cells. Apart from cord tissue, which either you have done it or you missed it. If you missed it, I cannot go back to getting that cord tissue. And that is where the importance of tooth comes in. The way our body is structured, fortunately, we have multiple options available for preserving cells because of our teeth. And for children between the age group of 5 and 12, this works out to be the best, simply because our teeth are anyway going to fall at that age. And as they are going to fall, it is a non-invasive process of collecting these stem cells, because the pulp that is inside the tooth is arguably one of the smallest tissues in the body with maximum concentration of mesenchymal stem cells. So we can actually collect these teeth, which are a very good protective layer around the pulp that is inside, take it to our biological bank, which is located in Chennai, and actually collect stem cells out of that and preserve them for the lifetime of that individual. Now, the logic in stem cells is also that as you age, your stem cells age with you. That is the reason bone marrow is always an option, but the bone marrow count and quality of stem cells drops pretty much to less than 5%. There are global papers available to that effect by the time the individual turns 50, from the time he or she is born. Hence, the efficacy of utility of those cells is limited, though at that age when you are undergoing a surgery, you do not have any other option as such other than using those cells. So as you age, these cells age with you. That's why if you get an opportunity, especially for our next generation who are losing their milk teeth today, to preserve cells, this probably is one of the best options to preserve mesenchymal cells. Of course, let me upfront tell you that from the tooth, blood related cells cannot be generated or preserved. What we deal with is mesenchymal or tissue and organ related stem cells.
So it's very pertinent for diabetes.
It is very, very pertinent for not just diabetes, but a lot of other tissue and organ related disorders.
Right. Now, when you talk about the quality of the stem cells going down with age, do you think that in diabetes, whose teeth may also get damaged over time, might lose the opportunity?
Absolutely. This is my biggest fear, frankly, if you really ask me. I'll give you a live case. We have a child in Hyderabad city who has signed up with us to preserve her teeth. She is unfortunately juvenile diabetic kid, and we have taken her cells or her teeth twice already and have not found adequate quantity of stem cells in those teeth. Now, I do not want to attribute that to her being diabetic, but I cannot even rule that out, really, because we have got a lot of juvenile diabetic children who have preserved their stem cells with us, and for them it has worked out. So I cannot generalize, but probably that is the reason why we have not been able to find good quality stem cells in her teeth. So as somebody grows, I do not know how that will impact.
Before we go into the nitty-gritties of diabetes related stem cells and all that, what about some diseases which are neither blood related nor tissue related? For instance, mental disorders. Can that also be treated through stem cells?
See, mental disorders have got two parts to it. One is the disorders which are linked to the central nervous system, and second which are linked to behavioral issues, which require more of counseling and talking to the patient more than any physical treatment. So the second part, definitely stem cells can't help. It is more of how you behave and treat with the customer.
Autism or those kind of.
So autism is not a behavioral disorder. It is actually a central nervous system disorder. Cerebral palsy is a central nervous system disorder. And frankly speaking, dental stem cells have the mesenchymal cells that we get from the tooth are coming from the endo layer of the of the system, so which is the innermost layer of the system, which actually deals with central nervous system related issues. So there are papers available that say that dental mesenchymal cells are preferred choice over any other cells because they have got endothermic properties.
I see.
In order to treat central nervous system related disorders.
Okay.
And that is where that is a preferred option.
Okay. The next issue, is that is about how is for a diabetic, for instance, type 1 diabetes, whose the insulin production itself is not there or it's very low. In that case, how is stem cells, the surgery or what the treatment is through? How is it done?
So see, there is yet success to be attained. Okay, so I will tell you how the research is progressing. Correct, how the research is progressing really. So the way we have understood this whole area is that there are, for type 1 diabetic patient, unfortunately the insulin generating cells are not secreting as much insulin as is needed, and since there are, if you inject these cells, more cells which can generate insulin, the body does not recognize, autoimmune, so basically body does not recognize those to be a part of it and hence kills them. So it is actually not very helpful by purely injecting insulin generating cells in that individual. So the way the stem cell companies and science is beginning to work.
Comparing the transplant.
I am comparing it with also a transplant, yes.
Transplant of the cells.
Of these cells, yeah. See, transplant. So let me divide this into two parts. One is that determining whether the stem cells have the capability of generating insulin itself, or they can form cells, beta cells as they call it, which can generate insulin. That is first part. And the second part is actually transplanting those in the body, so that the generation of these cells, the insulin generation of insulin actually continues to sustain itself till the lifetime of that individual. So these are two-step challenges. What I will say is that it seems that the first part has been successfully done, using mesenchymal cells. So there have been studies which have got published where mesenchymal cells have managed to generate beta cells. There are papers available to that effect, and even
mostly in the US.
In the US and also in India, frankly. So there is a paper published recently by Dr. Bonde and his team who are working in Bangalore, where they have actually managed to regenerate beta cells using dental mesenchymal cells. So they have managed to generate these beta cells, and these cells have the potential to generate insulin. So that's been proved. So that's the first part. The second part is the whole part about transplant. Actually putting the cells inside the body and ensuring that they continue to deliver for a sustained basis. Now, currently, the way I understand it is that continues to remain a challenge, because every time the transplant happens, what tends to happen is, because it's an autoimmune disease, the body tends to kill those cells, and hence the impact of that doesn't happen. So what many scientists are trying, including Dr. Bonde's team now, is they are actually looking at I don't remember the exact process, but microfilming the cells when they transplant them, which is an attempt to try and prevent these cells from getting killed by the body.
But in autoimmune, in his own cells, or the patient's cells itself.
Correct. So
but
that
it's only if it's a foreign body can.
No, even patient cells will be considered to be foreign. As far as the treatment is concerned, correct, immunity is concerned. So they are trying to sort of microcapsule. They have created a microcapsule through which they are going to actually insulate these cells and put them in the body, through which the insulin generation will continue and the insulin will come out of these microcapsules, but they will not get detected by the body as a foreign cell and will get killed.
But will get nourishment?
Will also get nourishment, yes. So that is the current study that is going on, and I believe that the clinical work is happening on animals right now, rats.
Fabulous, okay.
And that could lead to some change.
There is a brand new story.
I mean, I would look for the day, if it's possible in our own lifetime, when diabetes will be cured. That will be the day for humanity, frankly, because we truly believe that these are curable diseases and have to be curable. I think all the technology is evolving towards that particular objective, and it has a lot of impact. I mean, one is diabetic person is one part, but we also believe that it disturbs the entire quality of life of that individual, because there is the whole problem on impact of diabetes, which is in terms of wound healing, which is in terms of all the related disorders, which cause that. So my, sort of thinking currently is also that, preserving good quality cells is probably a no-brainer, because one, it can harm in no way, it can only help.
Okay.
One. And second is that if tomorrow you require good quality cells for treatment of diabetes, or frankly even the impact of diabetes,
Okay.
which is already in at a much more progressive pace, so moving at a much more progressive pace, the quality of life of that diabetic improve. So if you talk about bone regeneration, if you talk about wound healing, if you talk about corneal degeneration of eyesight and losing eyesight, all those are at a fairly advanced stage for stem cell related treatment. So that'll have a huge impact and benefit.
When you compare it with bone marrow, there are also people who say that a bone marrow can be very painful. Is that true?
See, bone marrow, there are divided views, frankly.
Cells out of bone marrow.
Absolutely. So, see, there is a divided view on whether bone marrow is painful. Many doctors who do it, say that it's just a small, prick and you got to. But the small prick is in the bone. Your anesthesia covers all the muscles but cannot cover the bone. So, frankly, if anything, and small needle also goes through the bone, I think it will pain. One. And second is, is also got to do with, end of the day, it is surgical intervention. You cannot do it, at any small clinic or office. You have to go in a hospital and get it done, at least till today. And hence we don't think, if a healthy person is given a choice, he is not going to go to a hospital and say, hey, collect my bone marrow, if you can preserve stem cells out of it, keep them for my future use. So it is a SOS, end of the day. So is adipocyte or fat related cells, because you don't, of course you do liposuction, but you cannot preserve these cells. They cannot, current technology doesn't permit you to bank them. So you have to use them. Yeah. Current technology for adipocyte, to the best of our knowledge, is not there to preserve them for future.
It's only for umbilical cord as well as for the...
Preservation is happening for umbilical cord, for teeth, for cord tissue. These are the three major areas where preservation is currently happening.
Okay. Now tell me, can a diabetic patient, who could be probably 50 years or 70 years, actually walk up to your bank and say, okay, can you preserve some tissues of mine? You want teeth?
If you really ask me, yes, because these preservation of stem cells can be done at any age. That's the biggest advantage of this. Of course, needless to say, I want to repeat myself what I said a while ago.
If the damage done already, then it cannot be.
No, it's not to do with damage. It's a question of aging. It's like our car. You use it for 2 years, you use it for 10 years. It'll have a different degree of wear and tear. So as our body also ages, our stem cells have different degrees of wear and tear. We all lose hair, we lose complexion of our skin, we lose strength of our bone, our knees start paining. All that is because stem cells in those parts are actually beginning to give up slowly and slowly.
Okay.
And that is exactly what will happen to a grown-up individual. We have customers who are 40 plus or 45 plus or even 50 plus who have preserved their stem cells with us. Okay, but of course we have told them that the regeneration ability of those cells will not be as good as a miltooth, preserved individual.
Okay.
So the ability for regeneration and differentiation goes down with age, and that is something that the customer should know about. But if you really ask me,
terms, how much the quality will go down?
If you really ask me, it depends upon the individual and his or her lifestyle. It is not a mathematical model, unfortunately, which can tell you that if you age so much, your stem cells have gone down so much. It depends upon what kind of diseases they have.
Genetic makeup?
It will also have impact of genetic makeup, you're right. It will also have, but more than genetic makeup, I think it will have impact of lifestyle. If one has a cardiac problem or osteoarthritis or diabetes or anything else, it will have an impact on the quality and quantity of cells that you get from their teeth or any other part of, even bone marrow will have similar issues, for that individual. But I think I want to add one more point. There is very importantly, it is for us to realize that today tooth is the easiest organ of the body I don't mind giving up. And many of us have our wisdom tooth with us. If you have maintained a good oral hygiene and have a healthy wisdom tooth, then you can consider preserving that. But of course, that's your call. We don't force people to do that. Mill teeth, we say, it's anyway going to fall. Yeah. Or many times, when braces are put, especially for adolescents, when they get their orthodontic treatment done, the dentist suggests that they should pull out the premolars. If those are being pulled out and those are healthy, that is another very good option for preserving your stem cells. So is wisdom teeth.
Is the wisdom tooth actually better than the other teeth?
See, wisdom tooth is better than the other teeth when it comes to the quantity of pulp inside the tooth. So that is good. We need more pulp. But when I compare it with a child's tooth gives me much smaller pulp size as compared to a wisdom tooth. But still I would prefer a child's tooth simply because the ability to regenerate cells in that child's tooth is...
But Mr. Gadre, the amount required for stem cells must be very little, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. See, the beauty of these cells that we find is they are probably one of the most regenerative cells in the body.
Okay.
So from a small, we get about 500,000 or we cut off at 500,000 cells. If we don't get 500,000 mesenchymal cells from a child's tooth, we actually end up rejecting the sample and taking another tooth because there's an option, right? Whereas, we typically find in the last, I would say 100, 200 samples that we processed, we would have had 1 or 2 such cases. But other than that, we find that typically between 500,000 and 4 million mesenchymal cells in any tooth. And if they can be regenerated, you can frankly generate billions and trillions of cells and can give back to that particular child, multiple times over. Of course, subject to the treatment, the regulation, and the framework that is designed in the country.
Okay. Mr. Gadre, now let's talk about the genetic part of it. If there is a genetic disorder which is actually the cause of diabetes, do you think stem cells can overcome that problem, or is it that when you get new cells also, that's also will be will have a problem of acceptance in the body?
See, genetic cause of diabetes, genetics is inbuilt into the stem cells, to the best of my knowledge, which means that if you then transplant that same individual stem cells back into him or her, they may not have the same impact because the genetic disorder continues.
Right.
Having said that, if one can transplant in a allogenic manner, that means somebody else's stem cells into that individual, which is also being worked out.
Really?
That can also, yeah. No, absolutely. Allogenic transplants are becoming more and more possible. Need not be. So they do what is called as HLA mapping, which is like a mapping of the tissues, and they use that for if the HLA matches at the time when the transplant is done, they are able to scientifically use those cells.
Just like any other transplant which is happening today.
It will, yeah. It would translate into a transplant that is happening today. So that is possible, and that could frankly help more. That is my understanding. Of course, the scientists and doctors are much more competent to talk about that.
Okay, Mr. Gadre, what is actually the cost incurred by a diabetic if he walks into your bank and says he wants to deposit his stem cells, teeth, whatever? How much will it actually cost him?
See, we had, so typically our dental stem cell preservation is not that expensive. It costs you one person about ₹1,00,000, which are spread over a period of 21 years. Okay, so effectively a person will pay about 5,000 to 7,000 rupees a year at best, and that too we have certain payment plans, which will make it much more possible for them to pay. This fees includes the cost of registration, the cost of processing, and storage and preservation, which continues for 21 years. Now the cost of processing, that is about 30,000. We ensure, because that's a cost that the company is incurring upfront, is something that people pay upfront to us. Apart from that, we have got plans through which they can pay over us over a period of time. But it costs you ₹1,00,000 in 21 years, so it's not significant.
And how many people actually walk into your various centers? And how many
Who are diabetic?
Yeah.
We have, okay, so we've progressed, though we've progressed at a defined pace. So in the first year, we had our presence only in about 3 cities.
Okay. How many years now?
This is about 3 years. So our company is 3-year-old. And the second year, we increased our presence to about 7 and 8 cities. And after getting and preserving around 1,200 odd samples or 1,200 odd customers, we have now decided to expand across the country and even internationally. So we should be looking at expanding into Singapore, into Thailand, into Australia and Middle East. Very soon. We are already in discussions with many players to make that happen. Having said that, we were very conscious in the way we were approaching. We did not have any payment plans because we are not a financing company, end of the day. But now, looking at the need of the hour, we have spoken to our bankers, and we just launched these payment plans of 30,000, 33,000 plus that I spoke about a month ago. And we've seen a very good upsurge in the volumes, because of these. Because a lot of people wanted to pay over a period of time and did not want to pay things up front. So we have now expanded to another 20 cities, and in total we have around 30 cities where we are present. If all goes well, before this financial year ends, we should be in another at least 10 to 15 cities. So our whole plan for this financial year is to expand and get a foothold into as many cities as we can, which are of importance, of course, to us commercially.
And how many register every day? How many stem cells?
We are registering about 100 customers a month, and that number we're expecting to go up because now the payment plans will kick in and that will give a lot more momentum. But of course, having said that, our major business still comes from the main 7 cities that we have been present in. The expansion cities are still sort of settling down, getting used to it. You have to pretty much let a lot of people within a city know about this whole concept and everything.
But you must be having a lot of competition even if you're going abroad.
So see, this technology is patented technology, and we've actually licensed and bought the rights of this patent for Asia Pacific and Middle East. From the European company that we deal with. And yes, this is process patent, so there could be people who could have this business or could start this business and all that. But we are fairly confident that we have managed to create a good brand name for ourselves, and have also got good recognition within the medical community for the cause that we stand for. And that has helped us, secure many more customers and their lives.
Sure. And are there any logistical issues in terms of storage, confusion over the labeling of all these? There could be a lot of things that you need to watch out for.
Yeah. So see,
that could happen in a Hollywood movie where you get wrong and wrong things happen.
Absolutely. So those are good to have scenarios in Hollywood movies. I hope they never happen in reality. But having said that, it is very important to have a very well laid out and approved and accredited process for the same.
And where did you get that from?
So we have got 2 places. One is the company we work with in France, which has the SOPs and the protocols, which is the IP that we have licensed from them, and we've implemented that at a facility in Chennai. And our facility in Chennai is actually owned by the people who are the best in this business, which is a company called LifeCell International. So LifeCell is in India is the largest umbilical cord blood bank. And they have, preserved more than 80,000 samples of people, over the last 10, 12 years of their existence. And we have our own lab in their facility, and we sort of follow a lot of basic logistical and all these processes as per the SOPs, and help them to implement the same to us. So there was already best in class facility that was available, which we have managed to partner with and lease out to make sure that our customers get the best service.